here we go. I'm going to remove the Canyonlands boho top since we just made that. Delete. And now let's click to spin for our next mystery make. Winner is the bee. And here is the bee that I'm going to be attempting to make this week. It does say it is a free crochet pattern. However, after looking at the pattern, it is more of a general guide on how you are able to crochet a bee. It is not a specific bee pattern. So this is throwing me for a little bit of a loop. Here is my attempt so far. I've got safety eyes in there. I'm going to add a little smile after I finish. I'm using acrylic yarn and a 3.5 millimeter crochet hook. I'm not sure what size safety eyes those are. I just kind of grabbed the bunch that I have here and fit the ones that I thought looked the best. They might be a little bit small. I'm not sure. I guess we'll find out once this little bee is done. I'm going to work another 3 rounds of black for the stripe and then finish off, work some decreases in yellow, and then I need to add wings. But again, this pattern is not telling me specifically how many to increase, how many to decrease, how many stitches I should have. It's a very general pattern, and so I'm kind of having to just crochet a bee on my own. But I think so far I kind of have it. I'm going to keep going and see what happens further along. Well, I finished the bee. This was not as easy as I had hoped, but it wasn't overly difficult either. I realized in the pattern there are links to other pages on the blog where it explains in much more detail how to make this bee. I didn't find that, or I didn't click on those until this guy was done. So this is one that I just kind of made all by myself with a little guidance from that free pattern. You can see the color changes. I've tried to do them on the bottom so you can't see it on the top. For the wings, I followed generally what the pattern said. However, I did not crochet in the round. I started in a magic circle, did half double crochets, chained 1 without joining, and then worked 2 half double crochets back across. So I didn't work in the round, I worked by turning my work, and I think that worked out pretty nicely. I also did 3 treble crochets in between the ends of my rows and then joined into a circle. So it did kind of create a little bit of a flat edge on the bottom of the wing and then a curved wing where I did those 2 half double crochets. I used the tail from where I closed up this bee, threaded it through the center top in between those wings, added some beads and a keychain, added my smile, which is definitely not perfect, but it is cute, and we've got a bee. Now, side quest time. I wanted to add a flower to the bee keychain, but I couldn't get it to work. So I just made a flower strawberry keychain to stand on its own. So that was my side quest, but I've got 1 bee done. I'm going to make some more bees just using different yarns and not make them into keychains because that does add a little bit extra time. I'm going to make some more of them in plush yarn and maybe a thicker weight yarn just to kind of play with the size. I'm going to double check the pattern as I make this and see if it's any easier following those other pages on the main site for how to increase, decrease, create your bee, the wings, all of that stuff. But generally, it is a pretty easy pattern. I think these are called bullet bees because you're basically just creating what looks like a little bullet. But it is very cute, very fast. It's still Monday, so you can definitely make this in 1 week. Working on the second bee now. I'm using the Soho Squishy, which I believe I got a while back at Hirschner's. And it is just kind of your standard plushy type yarn. I am actually following more of the pattern this time. For the one that I just made with the acrylic yarn, I attached the eyes on this end. The pattern says to work your bee all the way and start decreasing and then attach the eyes on that end. I don't know how that's going to work, but we're going to figure it out. Also, I have purple yarn for the bee stripes because I don't have any black. So this is going to be a fun, unique plushy bee. And here is my big plushy bee. Definitely looks like a bullet bee. I did it how the pattern was written, so this is where I started. Worked my increases, then worked a bunch of no increase rows, changing colors, and I tried to keep those color changes on the bottom. I had a little bit of an issue, or I should say I struggled a little bit placing the eyes because you place them before you close everything up, and I really wasn't sure on what round to do that. But I think I got them fairly accurate. I put on a little embroidered smile. And of course, the wings. The wings are a struggle for me to sew on, especially with any type of fluffy, posh, plushy type yarn. It just sheds and the string breaks, and it's very hard for me to do that. But I managed, and this little one has some wings. So I've got that one in plush to match my little bullet bee in acrylic. And you know what? I really think it came out much cuter as a keychain. Maybe that's because I actually had black yarn, yellow yarn, and it just kind of looks more like a bee. This one is cute and very soft and very squishy, but I think I like this one better. So it's still Monday and I've managed to make 2 bees. This pattern definitely checks the box of able to make within 1 week. I'm going to see how many more I can get done. It's kind of a simple type pattern, but it does take me a little bit of time. So I don't know how much time I want to spend on a whole bunch of bees. It has been quite a week of me not making bees. Let's talk about the pattern really quick. There's not too much to say. It's a very basic instruction on the steps one would take if they wanted to make a bee. It doesn't have specifics, or at least that's what I thought the first time I read through this pattern. However, after making the first bee, I went back and I looked at the pattern again, and there are links. For example, if you don't know how to make a magic ring, there's a little link that you can click, how to make a magic ring, and it actually takes you to the same person's website on how to make a magic ring for this bee. It also has links for how to increase, how to decrease. I already knew how to do a magic ring, how to do an increase, how to do a decrease. And so I didn't initially click on any of those links until the second bee. And then I realized, okay, they do give some more instruction on how many chains, how many single crochets they did, how many decreases they did, how many increases they did, that kind of thing. But if you're looking for a pattern that you want it specifically written out, magic ring, 6 single crochets in the ring, close up the ring, 2 single crochets in each stitch for the next round. If you want a pattern that gives you absolutely specific instructions, this one may not be for you. I like the fact that it is a very broad type pattern. So like you can create a small bee, a medium bee, a large bee, and it kind of allows you to be creative and create your own bee. So my suggestion is to check it out. Make notes as you're working up your bee. What hook size did you use? What yarn did you use? How big was the bee? How many increases did you do? When did you start decreasing? Where did you put the eyes? Those sorts of things. You can create a really cool looking bee. I have been wanting to make one of these bees for a long time. Not specifically from this pattern, but just a plushy type bee. I've seen them everywhere. Apparently they sell really well at markets. I personally don't do markets, so I'm not sure if they would sell for me or not. But it's funny because as you see people that make them for their markets, well, it's a very popular item for them. Not everybody likes making bees. I might be one of those people as well. So here are my bees. You've already seen them. I've only made 2 bees. Here's the first one. I turned it into a keychain. It came out really cute. I just used acrylic yarn, and I can't remember the hook size I used on this. Hopefully I mentioned that as I was making it or showing you earlier. And then I just put a cute little smile on. You do sew the wings on, so you create 2 wings and then you sew them on. I really wish that they were crocheted in, but I tried it on the other one and it's a little bit difficult to get it placed correctly. After I made this, I thought it would be really cute to add a flower, and my initial idea was to have the bee and then crochet a flower and have both of them hanging off of the same keychain. I couldn't figure it out. I did make the flower, and I added a strawberry charm to this one, and I just created a little flower keychain by itself. And that was my side quest for this week's mystery make. But the bee in acrylic yarn came up really cute. The one thing about this pattern is, from what my understanding in reading the pattern, we don't add the eyes until you're decreasing. This is the first one I made. I didn't want to do that. I added the eyes on the front, the increasing portion of this bee. And here's the decrease. I just felt it wouldn't look right. I didn't know where to add the eyes. I like to see them as I'm creating to make sure I've got them spaced right. That sort of thing. So I did change that in this bee. Now we come to the plushy bee. Still very cute. I did not have black plushy type yarn, so I used purple. And then this is sort of like an off-white for the wings. I tried to crochet these on directly. It didn't come out great. So then I had to sew them on. That also did not come out great. I am not happy with the placement of these wings. Also, the bee is kind of big. It's about the size, a little bit bigger than like a pop can. You can see my decreases there. The acrylic bee, it's not too bad. I tried to make sure that they were on the bottom of the bee. For this bee, this is where I started. And again, it wants you in the pattern to add eyes at the end before you decrease or as you are decreasing. I tried it for this one and I did not like it. It's very hard to know exactly where to place those eyes. I would much rather have had them here so I could see how the eyes were going to be on the face. Here, when you're decreasing, you haven't actually created the end of the bee, so it's really, really hard to place those eyes and get them right. At least it was for me. I did put a little smile on it, and like I said, the wings there. I think I stuffed it well enough. It's a nice bullet bee. It looks like a nice bullet bee. And it is really soft. I just used Posh, I think by Loops and Threads. It's one of those up there. Came out really cute. But again, I don't think I'm a fan of making bees. I had high hopes to have a whole bunch of bees to show you. And I just don't. So this is what we got done on this week's Mystery Monday Makes. It is now time to pick our next project. So stay tuned. I'll meet you back here next Monday and show you what fun, free pattern we get to make. Thanks for watching. Bye.